book. Once I realized that I wanted to do a series, like, oh God, now I got to go back through and remember what this person said, what their nuances were, what was he wearing, what was his nicknames. I don't remember any of this stuff. So now I got to go back through, and now I got to create an outline. And that was the hardest thing to do. So when you're doing a series, it gets more and more complicated. So now I've got Excel spreadsheets. Every single chapter has a synopsis. Every single chapter I keep track of each individual chapter with how many words are in them. And that also helps me keep track of how many words I do a day. So it was a lot easier with one book. And now I'm almost through the ending of the fourth one. And I don't know, I don't think it's going to get any easier.
It don't.
Thanks.
One thing I think you notice from all of us is that there's no set standards, there's no rhyme or reason. We all just got our own way of doing things, and whatever works. For me, I'm not a literary person at all. Even though I'm on my 11th book, my grandmother, she wrote a few books, and as soon as she passed away, it's like it jumped into my head, and all of a sudden I had some stories in my head that had me down. I had no idea where they came from. And I wrote my first book, that last Labor book, on a cell phone. While I was commuting to work in the back of an airplane. Sometimes I would ride the jump seat in the cockpit, and I was bored, had to kill time. So I just sit there in my little Tyrannosaurus Rex arms in the middle seat, you know, with just my thumbs typing away on a cell phone. And that just kind of spawned it for me. But there's a lot of people that probably noticed as they read my books, they saw probably an evolution of the writing as it goes. Now I've got to the point now where the stories just jump in my head. They decide what I'm going to write next. That book, Erebus, the most recent release, the crazy one in Antarctica, that entire book wrote itself in my mind while I was working on Viking 1, and it was beating on the door to get out. So as soon as I finished Viking 1, I just sat down and started watching the movie in my head and just described what I saw. And that's almost literally how it went. And right now, I'm working on Society Lost 3. I've got a Western, a sci-fi, and 2 more prepper books that are all fighting, you know, for that next place in line. So that's almost literally the truth for me. I don't sit down and try to think, what am I going to do next? There's a line in my head, and they're fighting over position.
So I'm kind of a collection of all these guys put together. I'm kind of happy to hear that I thought I was alone in the way that I write. I already mentioned that I was laying on my bed one night, and this story came in my head, and I opened up a Microsoft Word document, and I will just put down there a couple paragraphs, my story, my complete story in a nutshell. All right, I put the cursor back above that, and I just start writing. I got a starting point in my mind, I got an ending point in my mind, and every time I add something to that Microsoft Word, it just pushes the nutshell, you know, the entire context of my story right down. So I'm always close to my notes as it's kind of going down, down, down. So he does the same thing. He says, you know, it's always right there. I write what he mentioned organically. I write organically. I have, like I said, starting point in my head and ending point in my head. I write towards that end point. When I came up with the Tyrant series, I knew that I couldn't put it all together in one book, so I just started writing, and I didn't know how many books it would take. By the time I was almost done with book 3, Endgame, I realized that the story was coming to a head and there's going to be a climactic ending. I just went ahead and finished it off. That book was a little bit thicker than the other 3 books, but I didn't have enough storyline to make a 4th book, at least not with the characters that were in the main trilogy. But as I write, I kind of develop situations that I put the characters into, kind of randomly, because like, I believe that life is kind of random. You know, if any Bible readers in here, you know, the Bible says it rains on the just and the unjust, right? So things just kind of, it happens to everybody. It doesn't matter how good you are, how bad you are. Things happen to good people, you know, whether you're good or bad. Everybody gets the same share of rain. It just happens. So I write like that, and sometimes my characters are written into situations where, oh, I really don't want to lose that character, but there's no way that they can get out of it. So I have to be, if I don't want that character to die, I have to be careful how I write. Or I can go back and I can flip-flop some characters, but generally I'm happy with the flow of my story and the way that I put it out. So I'm more likely to change the characters around and put them in different positions than I am to just do a rewrite. I'm generally, like I said, very happy with what I got. So, and to me, when something is random like that and you suddenly lose a character that's not a main character, but just an important character, that to me, as if I was reading that, would snatch on to me, you know, like, oh, if that guy can die, then this guy can die, you know, and that kind of keeps the reader, you know, on the seat of the, you know, the chair, just kind of reading the, what's that? Yeah, so, I mean, we're writing post-apocalyptic books, right? So the gist of this is it's the apocalypse, and eventually everybody's going to die. We got this die-off situation, so, you know, the end, yeah. So we got to carry this out. Spoiler alert, don't go to the back of the book. But yeah, that's how I write, and you know, like I said, it's just kind of a collection of all these guys together, but it's worked for me, and I'm going to keep doing that until I find a better way.
This will be short and sweet. I start with a character. My books are character-based. I start with a character that I like. I put them in a situation. I do a brief outline of that, and then I try to do 3,000 words a day on that character, that situation, until it's all wrapped up. And Richard, I know you're ready to go here. Appreciate you, man.
I want to ask, pass the mic to Kevin, if you would. Now, the question was about how they write. Tell us a little bit about how you record what they write.
Always starts with reading the book all the way through, paying special attention in that read-through, obviously the plot, because it's important to know how the story goes, who the characters are, what they're like, any kind of clues I've been given to what they might sound like, because I'm going to be responsible for that. And any, I like to think of them as landmines, proper nouns, any town names, base names, persons' names, and these things, you know, depending on where you are in the country. If they were in my part of Florida, well, I'm going to be pretty comfortable with all those odd, strange names, or those names that would be odd and strange to you, but they're well known to me. But if the book is suddenly set in Pacific Northwest, or lovely North or South Carolina, or Virginia, there are going to be place names, park names, institution names that the biggest trap is the word that I think I know, but I don't, so I get it wrong. And we've got, we employ people called proofers who follow along behind, and I try to find people who are really just absolute sons of bitches at calling me out on pronunciations of things. I'm not sure about this, they'll say. This was a proper name, I'm not sure you got that right.
I've got your number, I'll call.
Exactly. But so that pre-read is very important to get started, and then it's you know, I try to get a couple hours a day of finished recording done, which takes pretty much the entire day. Because I make a lot of mistakes. And an average book is about a week to get it done. Proofer would go through for a listen. The author or publisher may or may not do a little bit of a review. And then I'm wrapped up and on to the next one. And I told somebody today, one of the tragic parts of being a full-time audiobook narrator, I don't get to read for pleasure anymore. And I used to be just a voracious reader. I read all the time. I always had multiple books going. And now that I do this full time, I'm either reading the book that I'm going to be reading, or I'm reading the book that I'm reading. And that's, it ends up being pleasurable, but it's done for work. I didn't get to choose it as just a you know, nice pursuit, something I'm going to read to go to bed. So that's the process.
Ask him about that rubber room in his house where he does the recordings.
Got just a few seconds. We're over. I apologize, Dr. Forster. You're out there. I apologize. Never had this many authors on stage at one time. Gotta tell a story, if you don't care, about the hurricane.
Oh, well, yeah, preparedness. Where does that fit into the scheme? We, living in coastal Florida, Hurricane Irma came right through the backyard. House was fine, all the people were fine, we did well, but the electricity was out for 2 weeks. And it's not a crisis, but it's a spectacular inconvenience. It's just a really long time in hot, steamy southern Florida to not have air conditioning. Did, of course, have a generator that we could use, and after the first week without power, realized that I needed to get back to work. These folks were waiting to get their books done. So I, with a generator, powered the studio back up. Hotter than hell, just wore a pair of shorts to go in, and sweat my way through an R.E. McDermott book, which was about a natural disaster taking down the power grid and making fuel scarce, which I read after a natural disaster had taken down the power grid and made fuel scarce. And it was just a perfect, okay, this is a good thing. But I got 3 hours of that book done on generator power after Hurricane Irma. So not only was the family reasonably well prepared, but the studio was pretty well prepared too.
All right, let's give them all a big hand. Now get off my stage. You got a real offer coming on. Hats, mic drop.